To be or not to be a superintendent, that is the question. If you choose to be, then the question becomes to live or not to live. Hi, my name is Tawana Stewart, and that is the question that will travel with me for the next 4 years. This course has opened a deeper understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the public school superintendent, which after this course I deem the most complex leadership position of all times. A job that is complete with conflict, public scrutiny, unreasonable expectations, complex decision making, and what seems to be a lifeless life. The balancing act and political demands, plus the demands for results, are more serious than any other CEO-like position as learned from the case studies presented in this course. The case cited in our course regarding the bus recommendation is a prime example. Although the superintendent was hired to improve teaching and test scores, she believed she should be involved with all aspects, such as the financial matters. However, the board disagreed. With daily conflicts such as this one would have to question what is the attraction to the title superintendent. Navigating policies and learning to let go of past responsibilities were a few lessons learned based on class readings. No one goes into any job, especially a leadership role, knowing every challenge they might confront or every hat they might have to wear. This is especially true when you are responsible for a whole school, and even more so when you are responsible for an entire system of schools. Leadership lessons learned from shadowing our superintendent and hearing guest speakers is that your day is never over, that the district's life is really your life. Day in and day out is spent with working with school board members, informing school board members, meeting with school board members, visiting schools, and meeting with principals. Wearing a superintendent hat, you must go into the position understanding that you will also have a good array of political issues that you are going to have to deal with, whether they are from the elected officials or individuals that are not elected but have a considerable political clout and could affect the initiatives or agenda that you have. Balancing the needs of various constituents can be challenging. You always have to manage the relationships with everyone around you, including your board. Communication is critical. If you're consistent in your message and consistent in your practices, then it doesn't leave any wiggle room for preferential treating. This is true of one of the case studies presented in our course study. The case study, I think it was political hardball. The superintendent in this case study did not manage conflict with the board well. He opened Pandora's box by accepting a luncheon with the 2 pro-union board members. He had to go up and keep them separated and happy. This is when everything was going good. But by choosing to sit with one faction and not inform the others is when the conflicted message appeared. Truthfully, people want rules to apply to everyone else except for them. There's a lot of navigating through the political arena. Like I said, the job of a superintendent is to carry the vision of the board and to do a good job. But when you have 5 or 7 different personalities with different ethics, different morals, and different beliefs, which are often not in sync with each other, or the priorities of educating children are in sync, then problems arise. At that point, then it becomes not so much about the children anymore, but it becomes more of a political game. So working with the board can pose significant challenges for the superintendent. The board is the superintendent's boss. We also learned that, which is a different perspective than what I thought of the superintendent. So they are responsible for hiring and firing the superintendent and evaluating the superintendent's performance on a regular basis. Since this is an elected board, new members might be chosen every few years. We've also noted that and learned that in our coursework. This change can and will, in some instances, create a different dynamic in the relationship with the superintendent from year to year, depending on who is elected. Before this course, my perception of the superintendent's role was just to run the district. At the conclusion of this course, I view the role of the superintendent as someone who teaches, someone who also learns, someone who supports student learning, someone who develops relationships, someone who maintains relationships, both in the elective realm and in the political realm in the community. The superintendent is the face and the voice of the system, and therefore has to be conscious about what he or she says, when they say it, and especially how they say it. As a leader, I realized that to grow, I must unmask my flaws. Throughout this semester, I have been given the opportunity to assess my strengths and my weaknesses to evaluate areas where I feel like I need to grow. And based on those assessments, I need to grow in that area. I value this strategy because it actually reveals my areas for improvement. The results of the assessments didn't surprise me because I consider myself a perfectionist, and I really find myself afraid to show my flaws because I associate my flaws with failures. So I'm learning that I have to get out of my comfort zone for fear of failure and develop a greater self-awareness to understand my strengths and weaknesses in a balanced way. I can't be afraid to acknowledge my weakness or regard them as obstacles or failures, but I need to view them as challenges that will grow me. I've also learned that as a leader, I must become more task-oriented. With my leadership style, I am more relationship-oriented, but having the balance between the two is a growth area for me. So shadowing our superintendent and looking at his daily schedule, I realized that I need something in place to ensure that things get done in a manner that is both proficient and on time every time. I do struggle with time management, and so I recognize that I need this structure to be deadline driven, but I don't want it to be to a point where it impacts or imposes a lack of employee autonomy. So the knowledge gained from my class discussions, coursework, readings has made me aware that the job of a superintendent will leave you standing where the roads diverge. 1 minute, everything appears to be working fine, and really in a blink, everyone could just have a different opinion about the path you should take, and conflict arises. So this is where the foundation of effective communication and strong relationship is mandatory. So then the question arises, because most times they start on a strong relationship, then the question, what happens when that strong relationship goes bad? Why does it go bad? And within this coursework, I've learned that oftentimes it deals with the roles and responsibilities, understanding them, understanding that the board versus the superintendent is failing to understand these roles, which can lead to mistrust, conflict, lack of trust, and miscommunications. So in conclusion, success in seeking a superintendent position requires both personal commitment and professional preparation. More importantly, it requires a dedication to improving education and helping all students achieve at their highest level. While I do believe, well, I take that back, I do know that I do have the dedication for improving education and helping all students achieve. After this semester of learning the roles and responsibilities of the superintendent, I am not so confident that this is where my talents will be best put to use. So, right now where I stand at the end of this semester, I have the question, superintendent to be or superintendent not to be. So I cannot wait to compare my findings at my first semester regarding my pathway on this journey to the conclusion of my pathway. So only time will tell. Until then, Superintendent Stewart or maybe Superintendent Stewart not.